the recording starts, but just rejoin. I don't know why they did that, but okay. That's so weird. Present. Yes, 114.
Wow.
Okay. All right, so you guys know we usually start off with 1 minute of breathing. And so today is not going to be any different. So I'm going to play the music, and we're all going to just be breathing together in solidarity, okay? All right. Deep breath in and out. Deep breath in and deep breath out. Deep breath in and release. Deep breath in and release. Deep breath in. One more. Great. All right. So we kind of already did like the intro. If anybody has a pressing need to share what their past week was like, we'll take like 1 or 2, and then we'll get started. Michelle says, I messed up my sleep more. I ran a lot, busy, sleep, starting a writing project with friends. Lame. I was in some internet drama. Ooh, don't get an internet drama. Would that internet drama happen to be regarding blackfishing? 2 squirrels raided my trash can. I can't even. Oh no! Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Tiffany. Happy birthday to you. All right. That was a hot mess, but you know, we just gonna roll with it today. All right, so I think we finished. Let me just see where we were before. We did the Kahoot. That's still up for you guys to play. So whenever you want, you can have at it. Okay, so I'm looking at, did we talk about, we started on black holes, correct guys? Yes, or thumbs up?
Yes, we read that.
Okay, did we do this one too? Yes, that was the license to carry, right? Yeah. So like people couldn't own weapons and knives.
Okay, Rose said that we were on the last one, which means that we did not do this one.
This one, okay. And so the important thing about, so we've been talking about Reconstruction for those of you who are a bit confused, and all of the videos are recorded, so you guys are able to go back and watch them at your own leisure to kind of catch up to where we are if you're just like rejoining. But we were talking about Reconstruction, and we're talking about how the 13th Amendment has that loophole which essentially allows slavery if you are in prison. So what a lot of states would do is they would round up and imprison a lot of Black people and a lot of just people in general, and they would hire them out to people who own plantations. So it was like continuing on slavery, even though technically on paper it is illegal to do so. And this is a picture. I know, Michelle. This is a picture of the Parchman prison, which is in Mississippi, which is one of the most infamous prison systems, one of the most infamous prisons. And this prison is responsible for the imprisonment of a lot of African-American men. And this is when you're going to start to see those seeds of mass incarceration start to become planted. So once again, if you guys have not watched, Slavery by Another Name or The 13th, which is a documentary by Ava DuVernay, you need to check it out. You need to watch it. If you have not read the book, oh goodness, it was like on the reading list for our kids this year in the magnet program. Irma, what was the name of that book that you guys had to read? I just had like a total brain fart.
Oh no.
What happened?
I don't know. That was funny though. Just Mercy is what Irma said.
Yes, yes. Read Just Mercy if you have not. And also, they turned it into a movie, I believe, as well, with Michael B. Jordan. So if you guys have not seen that, you should definitely watch that as well. Yeah, from Creed, my husband. Oh no, you know what? I'm gonna stop reading these. I'm gonna stop reading these comments. Oh, let me share this Kahoot with you guys before I forget. I'm gonna put it in the chat right now so that you guys, I think this is the one where you can, no, that's actually not it. Never mind. I will put it in the chat in a second. Remind me before you guys leave to put it in the chat. And can you guys please all make sure you're on mute, because someone's unmuted right now. Or, okay, no worries, I'll just mute him. All right, so this is Catto, and we kind of talked a little bit about him.
Because you gotta put your presentation screen went down.
It went down?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
It's on you right now. We're watching you. We don't see the slideshow.
Okay. Okay. Let me figure out how to redo that. Okay. Can you guys see it now?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, that's so weird. All right. All right. So this is Octavius Catto, and somebody is not muted. All right, so this is Octavius Catto.
Joey, you gotta press mute, Joey. Do you know how to do that? Okay. Because,
All right, so this is actually, and I'm going to share this resource with you guys. So this is an excerpt from the trial of Frank Kelly, who was the person who murdered Octavius Catto. And so when we're talking about Reconstruction and the Reconstruction era, a lot of times we leave out the North, right? Because we want to focus on the South and how horrible the South was and how racist the South is. And a lot of times we don't talk about the racist things that happened in the North. And it wasn't just a cakewalk, even though there was a large population of Black people living in Philadelphia, there was still a lot of tension and racial violence that occurred to Black people as a result of just their presence being here in Philadelphia. And so many of you may remember a few years ago, a big, huge statue was put up of Octavius downtown in Center City, right on the, I think it's the south, is it South Side, Ms. Williams?
It is the South Side. We showed his statue because they were saying that he was leaning, and then you said something about South Philly, and Lex was like, that's not South Philly. talking about South Street. I remember. Yeah.
Good. So this is like
he was Octavius Valentine Catto.
So this is like a little brief video about Catto, and then we'll talk a little bit more about him. He was a phenomenal man, and we will get into more details that is not covered in the video in a second. So everyone just enjoy for right now. This is Octavius Catto, and he is a famous Black Philadelphian you should know. So now you're about to get to know him.
Teacher, loyal Union man, baseball player, and civil rights leader, whose life was cut short on the volatile and violent streets of Philadelphia.
In a city and a state that had a slave system, as a free person of color, that put him in an exotic and difficult category.
He went to the Institute for Colored Youth, and out of this, Catto goes back there to teach.
Catto used his education to impact public policy and social change.
The war presented a chance to prove citizenship.
Catto doesn't enlist, but he'd spend the war actively recruiting Black troops from all over the North. He travels. He's a big-time recruiter.
What you have to understand about Octavius Catto is that he has this sense of the possibilities of racial integration at a time when the realities of the day were all about segregation and exclusivity and Blacks being demeaned and put aside.
Streetcar companies, which were a tremendous political power in the city, did not allow any person of color to ride. Heroes of that era's civil rights struggle found a way to use those streetcars as kind of the theater in which to fight, and through a number of different means, they won that fight.
Octavius loved competition, and he had a passion for a new and evolving game, baseball.
The Pythians formed in the 1866-67 season, and he wants to play against white teams. And finally, in 1869, the Olympics play the Pythians. The New York Times puts it on the front page. Pythians plays another white team 2 weeks later and wins.
He was the Jackie Robinson of his day.
But that wasn't nearly enough for OV.
He's talking about Black people asserting themselves to gain those rights, and specifically the right to vote.
Catto's sense was, if not now, when? And if not me, who?
The Democratic Party in Philadelphia by the end of the Civil War was afraid. Black men were handed an opportunity to exercise real political power.
White men threatening and cajoling Black men to not vote, and policemen assisting them.
They walk by him, call his name, and when he turns around, they shoot him.
Black Philadelphians, young and old, by the hundreds and thousands, gathered around his school, the Institute for Colored Youth down at 9th and Bainbridge, as if to hold it close and embrace him and what he stood for.
The man who may have been the greatest civil rights leader in post-Civil War Philadelphia didn't live to see the changes his leadership helped to foster.
Well, that has now changed. Okay, so that actually has now changed. There is now a statue, as we told you guys, down in Center City Hall, and it's not just his statue, but also like other pillars that go with it that represent different qualities or different things that he stood for, including education. So if you guys ever, when Outside opens back up again, you guys should go take a trip down there and view his statue. In the meantime, I think it's also important for us to talk about lynching before we get more into Octavius Catto. How many of you, show of hands, how many of you thought lynching was just to put a noose or a rope around someone's neck and hang them from a tree? Put that in the comments, show of hands. Yes, thumbs up, or no, you didn't think that, thumbs down. And I'm going to mosey on to the chat box. I'm going to see what you guys are putting. Okay. Nope. Okay, we got a few hands. Some thumbs down. Yes. All right. So a lot of people, awesome. Hanging is a part of lynching. Yeah, so a lot of people just automatically assume that in order for something to qualify as a lynching, you have to be hung from a tree. But that is technically not the case. It's more so having to do with extrajudicial violence. So that's violence occurring without there being some sort of trial or some sort of crime that you will be put on trial for. So it's usually like vigilante or mob justice. Someone sharing?
No.
No. Oh, okay. Do you want to add anything else to that, Ms. Williams?
No. I have a poem I can post later, though. Between the World and Me is one of my favorite poems about lynching.
Okay. Well, can you share that with me too?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. So I think it's really important that you guys understand that, because later on, and also things are going to get a little graphic in a few slides. If not today, then definitely tomorrow. So just like FYI, there are going to be images that we're going to show that may be a little bit tough to see. But I think it is really important that we as Americans come to terms with the terrorism that was inflicted upon the Black community and also upon whites who allied themselves with the Black community. It's also important to note that Black people were not the only people that were lynched. A lot of their allies who were white, who were helping, also met that same fate. So when we're talking about lynching, it's important to be as nuanced as possible and talk about the many different ways that this form of terrorism affected the Black community and beyond. So this is a primary source from the day that Octavius Catto was killed. Can I get a volunteer, first one to put their hand, a hand emoji or hand in the chat box gets to read it? Miss Williams, you'll tell me who?
Tiffany Zhang.
Tiffany. Hey. All right, Tiff, unmute yourself.
Yep. The morning of Tuesday, October 10th, 1871, opened with the streets, including the territory bound by 5th, 8th, Pine, and South Streets, crowded with feverish mobs of blacks and whites, ready for mischief. The polls within the district were crowded before the windows were open, and from the outside of the voting disorders continue, in which the sufferer was, as a rule, a colored man and the aggressor either a policeman or one or more of the ruffianing whites, with whom the neighborhood on this day was particularly infested with. These disorders were greatest at the poll of the 11th Division of the 5th Ward, at 6th and Lombard Streets.
Oh, anybody ever been to South Street? Okay,
Yeah.
so if you've been to South Street, you should know exactly where 6th and Lombard is. It's very close to South Street. And it's also close to St. Peter's School, which is, if you guys are from South Philly, you probably know where that is. All right, continue, Tiff.
Where the voters, contrary to all precedent, were ranged in two lines, one of the blacks and the other whites, between whom there was a perpetual struggle to get in the votes of the rival races, resulting almost invariably either in the colored man giving up the attempt or else a fight, in which after drubbing by his white antagonist, he will be arrested and locked up.
All right. Thank you. So this is an excerpt from a pamphlet called The Trial of Frank Kelly for the Assassination and Murder of Octavius V. Catto. If there's anybody that wants to respond to this primary source, throw your hand or a hand emoji, type hand or a hand emoji in the chat box, and then you can unmute yourself.
Rose. Can you unmute yourself, Rose? Oh, she said, so voting was just a trap.
Ah, so you're saying they lure them there for voting only to abuse them and beat them up, and then arrest them. So, all right, anybody else? Going once, going twice. This is also, oh, go ahead.
Celeste, you want to unmute yourself? Do you know how?
Or it's Celeste, if your mic isn't working, you can also like chat, type your response in the chat box.
Okay, I don't know. James said poll tax.
The poll tax. You talking about voter intimidation, James?
Okay.
Who's that?
Maybe Celeste? I don't know.
Celeste, is that you?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Celeste.
Read it.
Oh no, we were asking if you had a response to the primary source. If it stuck out to you from the primary source. No? Okay. All right, James, you want to talk about the poll tax that was sometimes levied against Black voters, since you brought it up?
All right. So the poll tax was supposed to get some extra funds for elections, be just high enough so that at least desirable whites wouldn't have a problem paying it, but it would be a severe problem for Black people. And on the other hand, they would also have, like, I believe they called them proof of citizenship tests or something.
Mm-hmm.
But like they would give these intentionally like gotcha type questions on these tests.
Oh yeah.
Except if you got too many times, you couldn't vote.
Yep. So one of the things they might say is recite the Constitution or recite the First and Second Amendment.
Draw a square. That's not a square. That's a rectangle.
Exactly. So it would be like these really, things that, okay, impossible seeming to be able to actually do. And then a lot of Black people would determine to vote. So then they would go home and memorize the Constitution. They would go home and memorize amendments. And then they would come back the next day and it would be a different test. So it was a constant changing of the bar. And that, a lot of times that happened in the South. In the North, it also occurred in some spaces, but you also had to deal with the fact that there was a lot of racism in these northern cities. And so one of the ways they did that was they made it extremely hard for Blacks to be able to vote. And it's unbelievable that this happened in Philadelphia and that this happened right down in South Philly, close to South Street. And this was also a predominantly Black neighborhood. So you also got to understand that there was a lot of agitation going on by lining them up in the ways that they did, where we have a white line over here and we have a Black line over here. And the only people that are getting arrested are the Black people. And the only thing that they're guilty of is trying to vote. And so this is important for us to understand. You cannot get a complete sense of African-American history if you're only focusing on the South and you're only talking about white terrorism in the South. It's very important that you have to talk about what happened in the North, because if you have such a one-sided view of history, then you won't understand how these things that happened in the past continues to affect us here in the present. And so we were, so a little bit more about Octavius Catto. He was from the South. He came up north. He was very intelligent. He studied like Latin, and history, geometry. While he was in school, he later became a teacher and was tapped as the headmaster for the Color Institute. And he was also in the National Guard. And what also precipitates his murder is the fact that he's able to attain these positions in society and kind of push the envelope in terms of activism that makes him like a known target. So there was actually an attempt on his life earlier in the day, and he went to buy a gun and was on his way home, and it almost got home when he was murdered. And so because he tried to integrate the baseball league well before that was even something that people could conceive of, he's considered not only as an educator and an activist, but also a visionary, somebody who was ahead of his time. So in the North, we know through Octavius' story what it looked like in the North. In the South, this is another form of intimidation and murder, and this is also a primary source. Can I get someone to read hand emoji or type hand, the first two sentences that is on our screen? Can we get a volunteer?
Kaisha.
Okay, Kai Kai. Oh, can I call you Kai Kai?
Yes, you can call me that. Okay, so what did you need me to read again?
The first two, so that those sentences in that paragraph.
Okay. So J.L. Edmonds, an African-American school teacher, gave this account of murder and intimidation before the 1875 election in Clay County, Mississippi, where we appointed a meeting. The Democrats will go there and speak as they please. They will take a cannon and load it up with chains and leave it with the mouth pointing toward the crowd of colored people. When they fired, they had nothing in it more than power, but when they were going to speak, they would have it turn around and the chains hanging around it.
Okay, so what were they trying to do, Kai Kai? What do you think they were trying to do by having this cannon pointed at colored people?
I think they were basically just trying to intimidate them of not standing up to, I guess, the election, and basically just scaring them off.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your wonderful reading voice as well. All right.
You're welcome.
It's so cute. Can we get another volunteer for the next?
Edel.
Hello.
Hi. Okay, so you just want to read that paragraph, the first, and well, read paragraph 3 and 4.
Okay. They had a parade at West Point. I was standing on the corner talking, and some colored men came up, and a colored man said, "I do not care how many are riding around. I am a Republican and expect to vote the ticket." Just then, a man walked up with a pistol and shot him. Pretty soon, another colored man made some expression, and he was shot at. They had flags, red, white, and crimson flags. The whole street was covered. You could not hear your ears hardly for the flags waving and flapping above your head. They had one United States flag at the courthouse, but most of the flags were just old Confederate flags.
Oh my goodness. All right. So what do you think is important from these two paragraphs?
Well, I mean, it's showing how when they were talking about how they wanted to vote, they were literally walked up and murdered.
Absolutely.
And you can tell by the intimidation by them hanging Confederate flags everywhere. It was meant to scare Black people into not voting because of the environmental, like the environment in which they were supposed to vote in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm going to read this last part only because it includes a very sensitive word within it. And we're not going to say that word, but you guys all know, you can see it on your screen. So they said they were going to beat at this election. They said that at the meetings, on the stumps, and at schoolhouses around the county. They said they would carry the county or kill they would carry it if they had to wade in blood. All right, that was my best Southern hick accent. But yes, so this primary source shows and highlights how difficult it was for Black people, not only just to vote, but to vote Republican, which is also kind of weird when you think about it, because now we live in a time where most people who are Black are Democrat. And so there was a flip there at some point where Black people kind of switched from the Republican Party to the Democratic Party, and vice versa for white supremacist whites who really were in the Democratic Party because of the policy of not wanting to give rights to Black people. So times definitely has changed. Extra credit point, although there's no extra credit that I could technically give, but extra credit point to anybody who can tell me the name of the president of when this switch first starts to happen. Let's see if we can get somebody.
Obama.
The switch?
Miranda said Lincoln.
Not Lincoln. So when the switch happens from Black people being Republicans and white Southerners being Democrats, anybody want to take a guess as to what president where that switch happened?
When Black people started to first vote Democratic?
Mm-hmm.
Johnson, the other
Hey,
Johnson.
You gotta raise your hand. What other?
I did raise my hands.
What other Johnson?
Okay.
As in Lyndon B. Johnson, not Andrew Johnson, as previously discussed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And so, and this also actually starts, this whole thing kind of starts with President Harry S. Truman. And we'll get a little bit more into with that, but that was around like 1948 where this split happens in the Democratic Party. And it creates other Democrats that they can we?
Someone has to mute your mic. James, mute your mic.
Okay.
Gloria Wood needs to mute her mic.
Oh, I got it. Okay. So, oh wait.
Gloria has to mute.
I just did it. Okay, I think I did. So up until 1948, Southerners were very happy with the Democratic Party. That all is going to start to change when there's like a big to-do that happens at the Democratic Party convention in 1948. And it was an introduction of like a platform that wanted to deal with giving rights to Black people, civil rights. And that upset a lot of the Democrats, and they walked out of the convention. They rebranded themselves and called themselves the Dixiecrats. They actually put up their own candidate who was Strom Thurmond. You guys may be familiar with that name, but he was like a very racist man. Obviously, he didn't win, but that is where like the split is going to start. And then it becomes solidified in 1964 as what I believe it was James said, Lyndon B. Johnson signs the Civil Rights Act. And basically when he signed, after he signs it, he basically said, I just handed the South to the Republicans. And that's essentially what happened. There was a mass exodus of white Southerners from the Democratic Party to the Republican Party, and a lot of Black people flipped to Democratic because Lyndon B. Johnson just passed that Civil Rights Act. So that's where the flip-flop is going to happen. It's the 1960s, but it really gets its teeth. That split starts to happen in the 1940s. So just an FYI, because people are always like, wait a minute, so how did Black people become Democrats? And how did like white Southerners become Republican? All right, so obviously everybody knows that the KKK was created post-Civil War, or if you don't know, now you know. Some of the intimidation things that they would do is burn crosses in front of churches or in public areas. They were characterized, obviously, by wearing hoods on their faces or sacks over their faces so that you would not know who these men are. They were doctors, they were lawyers, they were police officers, they were judges. Any sector of society that you can think of, that was who was in the KKK. And they wore these masks and hoods or bags over their faces in order to hide their identity. And also as an intimidation factor, because if you can't see who is attacking you, you're going to be very scared. And their tactics actually worked really well in terms of preventing Black people from voting. In a lot of places in the South, you're going to see the decrease of Black votership exponentially with the rise of the KKK. It came about in 1866, which you guys know is 1 year after the Civil War ends. A bunch of former Confederate soldiers were probably somewhere drinking some beer and deciding that, you know what, I am not over this. This is not okay. And we are going to form an organization. They did. Nathan Bedford Forrest, you guys might remember him. He was one of the generals in the Confederate Army, then comes along and decides to, then comes along and is considered like one of the leaders of the KKK. He didn't help start it, but he was one of the leaders of it. And you guys will recall that Nathan Bedford Forrest is responsible for the murder of over 300 Black soldiers at Fort Pillow. And this was, they had surrendered, they had waved the white flag, and then he came in and gave the order to have them all executed even after they surrendered. So that was also to send a message that if you were Black and you joined in the Civil War, you joined the army, that we were going to single you out and kill you because we're not equal. So Ulysses S. Grant then becomes president, and he is the 18th president. And so it is his job to deal with the KKK because they had gotten completely out of control. And so 1871, and now mind you, the Civil War ends in 65, the KKK comes about in 66. So they are literally running around unchecked for years. And it's hard for people to deal with the KKK without federal support. And so Ulysses S. Grant then is going to enact something called the 1871 Civil Rights Act, AKA the Klu Klux Klan Act. And he's going to try to deal with this issue of the Klan. Something called habeas corpus is suspended, which basically means we can round up people as much as we can, and we don't need to have a trial or to try them. And honestly, a lot of people were upset about this because it violated the Constitution. But on the other hand, it's like, how do you deal with a terrorist organization such as the KKK? And it did work because of his heavy-handed tactics. It did kind of blunt the KKK, but we all know that unfortunately, this white terrorist group continues till this day. They may not be out hanging people from trees, but they are still around nonetheless, which is very interesting. So I want to stop right here. Let me do a time check. Oh, snaps. It is not. Oh, wow. So nobody was going to say anything?
Not me.
So I'm going to share some resources with you guys. If you guys have not watched Aftershock Beyond the Civil War, you should definitely watch that as well. It gives a really comprehensive view of Reconstruction, and also it does a really good job of capturing the fight that states had to take in order to deal with the Klan in different ways. And so if you guys get a chance, that is on YouTube, and I can also share that link with you if you don't have it. Alexander said he's going to marry Sasha Obama. I literally cannot deal with any of these kids. Miranda, I'm just checking the comments. Miranda says those confused surely after Lincoln's presidency, the Republican and Democratic Party went through a switch. The party's ideals flip-flopped. So suddenly Republican ideals were now no, not necessarily. The Republicans came in as the Republican Party, and that was the party of Lincoln. That was the party of that was considered like the party that a lot of people who were abolitionists were a part of. The Democrats were always kind of looked at as like the Southern party, and the party of like racists and white supremacists. The switch between these two parties, right? The Republican Party doesn't become the party that harbored white supremacists until post Civil Rights Act signing by Lyndon B. Johnson. So it's important that you guys understand that flip and that conundrum for you all. So your role there, Chief. Whoa. All right, guys. So thank you guys so much for coming into class today. So tomorrow we're going to pick up where we left off. Things get a little bit graphic with the pictures. So I just want to warn you guys in advance that things are going to get a little graphic. And so if you cannot handle those type of images, I would say, close your eyes, don't look. But I do think it's important for us to see these images and to see what happened. FYI. Okay, and so if Ms. Williams, do you have anything you want to add before everybody starts to leave?
No, it was great to see everyone or read everyone.
Yes. Tomorrow at the same time? Yep.
Yeah, Central, they have other classes. They do have an AB schedule. The class will be recorded and, you do what you can.
Yeah.
You're required to be here when you're required to be here. Not at, if it's a conflict with another class, then, I understand.
Yeah. Yep. I can't believe we had so many kids today.
Yeah. It was great. It was great.
Yes. All right. So for anybody that wants to stay for this explanation of blackfishing, Michelle said history, other classes. Period, Pooh. Okay, I'm sorry. I can do that again. Stressful times. I know. Michelle say do it again. No. All right. So blackfishing is this new phenomenon. Well, it's not new. Blackface is not new. Blackface is not new. But what is new, or I should say becoming more rampant, is may I see the board? Yes. Oh, and I'm gonna take a picture of it too. Was this idea? Excuse me. Yeah. Thanks. Blackfishing is, if you guys have ever been on social media, you might see a girl, you might think, oh, it's a light-skinned black woman. That was my husband. It's a light-skinned black woman. And in reality, if you keep scrolling down the pictures, you'll notice that it's actually not. It is a non-black woman who has on a lot of bronzer and makeup and they've like lined their lips or either gotten their lips injected with collagen to appear black. And so a lot of people are upset with that because it's like you're putting on a costume. It's like you're doing it because you want to try on that aesthetic, but you don't want to have the you don't have to deal with the trauma and the pain and the history that comes along with looking like that, right? And so a lot of people have been asked not to do that, and they continue to do it anyway. There's been a lot of stories about it. I'll put one in the chat. I started seeing some of these girls, and I was like completely shocked. I was completely shocked. Here's one. I will share this with you. And there are pills you can take now where it gives you melanin. So let me know if that link works. Oh, the board. Okay. How do I? Tiff, you know what you can do? Click on me and pin me. Press the pin button and it should bring me up. Oh, so they take the pills, but I'm gonna take a picture of it for you, Tiff. It's not really much on it, but I'll take a picture of it and I'll send it to Ms. Williams. So yeah, there's pills you can take, melanin pills that can make you darker. And so they do it to be darker. They line their lips, or they might like make their lips bigger. And yeah, it's just really, it's not cool. It's like putting on a costume for Halloween, you know? This is people's life. And the other thing, the reason why people are really upset about it is because a lot of times the girls will wear their hair. It's blackface 2020, exactly. And a lot of times the girls might wear their hair in braids and stuff. And these are styles that Black women are fired for at work. These are styles that when they come into the office, they can't get hired with these styles on, wearing these hairstyles. And someone who is not Black then gets to do it, and it's celebrated and uplifted. So if you know anybody that's blackfishing, tell them not to. And it is different than just, it's different from just getting a tan. Right, exactly, because people tan. But this is like the deliberate changing of your appearance to appear to more resemble a Black woman. And Black culture is not a costume. Nobody's culture is a costume, right? Absolutely. I see this a lot with indigenous people, where people dress up like they're Pocahontas with the head feathers. And that's not acceptable. That's not okay either, because when you if you are wearing a headdress, that's something that has to be gifted to you from the leader of the tribe. And those feathers and those headdresses have meaning. So how are you putting on the costume of a culture that you're not even a part of, and you don't even know what that means? And also, not only that, but you're not willing to fight for that culture or that people in regards to standing up with them against white supremacy. So there's a saying with blackfishing now that's everybody wants to be Black until it's time to be Black, right? So a lot of these people, they don't care about Black issues, but they take on the Black aesthetic. So that is blackfishing in a nutshell. Let me go see the comments. The pill cannot know it is not healthy. Tanning, so you should wear sunscreen, but also it's a good idea to get vitamin D, because vitamin D actually gives us nutrients that we need from the sun. So you should definitely use sunscreen when you're out, but you should try to get as much sun as you can, because we need that vitamin D. But sunscreen is really important to keep your skin from burning. And yes, even Black people should also be wearing sunscreen, because Black people can get skin cancer. And that's like, people don't realize that. So yeah, oh, Siani just said it. Tanning has risk of skin cancer. Yep. And how come the government hasn't taken steps to dismantle the KKK? That's a difficult question. I know, Michelle, right? Just imagining you wake up one day and say, I'm gonna be Black. That's right. Ms. Williams said you only need 15 minutes for vitamin D. So the KKK falls under freedom of speech. So if they feel like, you know, you can say you can't inhibit people's freedom of speech. But if it becomes a violent act, then that's when we'll act. I find that really interesting, because you know, if it was like another terrorist organization, like, I don't know, Al Qaeda or something like that, that could not happen, right? Al Qaeda could not get a group of people and march through the streets here in the US. But the KKK can do that, right? They can have a parade. That is intimidation, that's violence. It's something that we should be working to say, no, this is not okay. This isn't violating people's First Amendment. This is intimidation for Black people. This is fear for Black people and for Jewish people and for people who are homosexual as well, because the KKK, they don't discriminate in terms of who they hate. Latinos, they throw in there, Blacks, people who are homosexual, and Jewish people as well. So it definitely should be something that we should band together and try to point out the hypocrisy of having an organization that has been connected to terrorism for so long, and the fact that it's still around and still allowed to parade through the streets. I don't think that that's acceptable. Pennsylvania has the highest number of hate groups here in the country, FYI, if you guys didn't know. Isn't hate speech violent? I would say yes. I would absolutely say yes. But the way that it has been applied in the law, there are ways around it. If you're not hurting anyone, if you say, I hate Black people because they're insert whatever racial slur, somebody would say, okay. If you say, I hate Black people because they're insert racial slur and they all need to die, then that's where they draw the line and say, okay, so this is a crime, this is not a crime. It doesn't make sense, but that's. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome, Siani. I have to leave. Bye, everyone. Bye, guys. Adios. So, Irma, I hope that explained what you were looking for. And now it is 12:06. So you are 16 minutes late for class. All right, guys. It was good to see you guys, and we'll see you tomorrow. All right.
Bye. See you, Miss Ridgway.
Bye, Miss Williams. I'm about to hit you with this stuff right now before I forget.
What stuff?
The resources and the video for, the picture for Tiffany.
Oh, okay. All right. You're gonna put it in the classroom?
Yes.
On Facebook?
Yep.
Okay.
I'll put it in there right now.
Okay, and I'll post the poem.
Okay. Oh yes, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. See you tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, James. Bye, everyone.